this is a guide on how to enter records when you first set up your SEWBReCORD account. So you should be all logged in and ready to go. And the first thing we want to do is to click on the record tab up here on the left-hand side, and then select enter a casual record. So this is for if you've been out for a walk and you've seen one thing and you just want to record that one single species, you would use the casual record form. So the first thing it asks us for is the date. So you can just click on that and it brings up a calendar. And you can just click on any date to get it pulled up into the cell here. The recorder name is already filled in with your own name, which you use when you set up your account. You can change this. So say, for example, a neighbor tells you about something that they've seen. You could enter a record on their behalf just by changing the recorder name at this point. Then the next thing it asks us for is the species. So behind the scenes of SEWBReCORD, there is the National Species Database. So dictionary rather, so it has got a list of all the species that are found in the UK. So you can just start typing and a species will come up. So let's try putting in a robin. And we can see here, it's pulled up a few different things that have got robin in the name. And if we sort of go down a few, we can see here that the bird is there as an option for us. So we just click on that and the species has been selected. There are a couple of optional extras we can fill in here. So certainty, if I wasn't quite sure if it was a robin or not, I could indicate that here. The quantity is a free format, so I could type in one or the word one or however many I've seen. The sex you can fill in, so if I knew if it was a male or female, or if it was mixed, so say I'd seen a pair, that would be a mixed sex group. Life stage can be relevant depending. So say I was looking at a butterfly and I'd actually found a caterpillar rather than an adult, I could indicate that here. Or if I'd found a robin's egg rather than an adult, I can indicate that here as well. So there are a few different options depending on the group that you're recording. The next thing that you can add as well is an identifier. So say I'd emailed somebody or asked on social media for some help in identification, and somebody did help me, I would put their name here. That just sort of acknowledges that they've helped with the creation of this record. The next thing you can do is to indicate that the record is sensitive just by clicking on this here. So say, for example, you'd found a red kite nest or an otter holt, something that is sensitive to disturbance and you don't want everybody else finding out about. You can tick that here and it won't be, it will take all of the location information out of the record basically. So no one else will be able to re-find that species. The full details still get to SEWBREC and to the national schemes and societies. It's just not publicly available. So that's a really useful feature if you found something you don't want everybody finding. And then you can also add a photograph. So just click on add photo and then navigate in your system to wherever you keep your photographs. Oops. And then we get to location. So this is another one of the cells that are essential to fill in. You can see here they have these red stars. So basically the who, what, where, and when of recording are essential bits of information. So they have these red stars. Everything else is optional, so you don't have to fill in any of these 4 cells. But we do need to fill in the location. So to find a location, you can use the search function here. So say we wanted to go to Cardiff, we can just type that in there and it pulls us down to the map showing Cardiff. And then you can zoom in and actually find exactly where you are. Alternatively, you can just move the map around. It's a sort of standard Google map interface. So you click and pull and you move across the map. You zoom in and out using this or your scroll function on your mouse. It's quite intuitive, really. It does have some different layers that we can turn on and off. So it's on satellite at the moment, satellite imagery. We can switch it to Google Maps and to OpenStreetMap. So if we go for Google Street Map, and I will type in where this actually was, Tonrevel. So this has pulled me down to the approximate area, and then I can just click inwards, move the map around, find my actual house. And then when you click and you've got this red square here, that means that the grid reference has been pulled through here. So I could go in a bit closer. So you see how this little square is still hovering for me. I could click again, and we can see it's given us a more detailed grid reference with more figures. Or it might be that I've seen a bird that's flying over and it's not really in a very specific grid reference. I could zoom all the way out and pick one of these big squares instead. So once you've got that red square showing, it will have brought the grid reference through to here. And then the other little bit of information that we do need from you is to type in the location name. This just allows us to make sure we've not made an error at all with the grid reference or anything like that. So we filled in these two. The last two optional pieces of information are habitat. We don't really use this information at SEWBREC, but it can be useful for others. So fill it in if you feel inclined. It's very optional. And then you can fill in a comment. So say you'd seen breeding behavior, or robins were particularly feeding on your feeders, or you'd found a moth in a trap that you'd set yourself. Anything like that you would fill in the comment section. And then you hit submit and the record will go off to our database. So I'll just show you again quickly how to do that all. So we fill in the date, we type in the species name, and we pick the right one from the list. You can fill in these details if you want to. I'm not going to fill in any of those. And then we get to location. So the other feature of locations is that once you've set up a location, you can save it. So we can see here that I've got Tonrevel saved. And if I click on that, it takes me to the grid reference that I've used in the past for it. So that can save you a bit of time. For example, if you're recording in your garden often, you can just save it as a location and then it will pull you straight through to the proper grid reference. So I'm not going to fill in habitat or comment. I'm just going to hit submit. And it says, thank you for submitting your record to SEWBREC online recording database. The other major way that you'll probably want to record things is using the list of records. So we go back up to the record menu and select the second option, enter a list of records. It will ask you if you want to leave the site just in case you haven't hit enter, but I've sent mine off, so I can say leave. So a list of records, this needs to be a list of species that you've seen all on the same date at the same location. So perhaps you've sat and watched the birds in your garden, you've got several species you want to add at the same time. This is the form that you would use to do that. So it's very similar to adding a single record. Again, it asks us for the date, and we get this calendar option. Again, it's got the who, it knows our name. And then we can just start typing in these species. So let's pop in a few birds. You can see as you start typing, it brings up a list of options, and you might get to the option you want without filling in the whole name. In some species, you'll find this little triangle will appear, and that just indicates that the species is a bit more difficult to identify. So there's a numbering system, and number 2 means it's not too hard. You can hover over them and see exactly what they mean. So number 2 says potential identification issues for less experienced bird watchers / in certain conditions. So If you get one of these little triangles, just read what the note is and maybe think about whether you do want to enter that record and if you're certain about your species ID. The rule sets have been written by the national schemes and people like that. So they've sort of decided what are the more difficult species in their group, and they've written the rules according to that. So we haven't written the rules, they've been written by national specialists, basically. Some species might have a really high rating. So if I just show you a dark tagger, which is a type of moth. And we can see here that it's got a number 4. And if we hover over it, it should hopefully tell us the reason. Species that can only be identified following critical assessment, often involving dissection and examination of genitalia. A specimen should be retained for confirmation. So in some cases like that one, you will have to take a specimen. So just makes you think twice if you get one of these little triangles. I'll just get rid of that one. Let's pop another species in. There we go. And just to show you, some species have got share a name with other species. So if I type in red shank, not that I got one in my garden, we can see here that as well as the bird that most people probably know, there is a plant and a couple of mosses that share that same name. So do be careful when you're typing in common names, just in case you've picked, for example, magpie the moth rather than magpie the bird. So once you've entered your list, I should say as well that if you want to add any of those optional pieces of information for individual species, you can do here. You can just click from the drop downs and add individual comments, add individual photographs as you want to. And then we can flip over to the Where Was It tab. And again, we're just filling in the location details. So if I click in Tarcowan Crescent, and that is a saved site of mine, we can see it's pulled me straight down into the garden. And I can just click on that square to get the grid reference. And if you want to, you can add habitat and comment information, but otherwise we'll just hit submit. And we can see we've got that thank you message for the records have gone into the database. I'm just going to show you how you can check that the records have gone in properly. So we can click on the Explore tab, and then we can pick from these different record options. I'm going for My Records Full. Now this might take a little bit of time to load as there's quite a lot of data involved, so we'll just be patient with it. You may have spotted that there was a My Records Quick version, which does load the data more quickly than this, but it doesn't include the most recently added records. It's got about a 15-minute lag time, so we wouldn't be able to see what we've just entered on that option. So here we go, it's loaded all of my data. And we can see here that the ones I just entered, so a house sparrow, siskin, blackbird and robin, have appeared and they have been entered correctly. I'll explain some more about the other things you can do with your records in the next video.